Hey guys, I am Jimmy Farrell. I am a recent graduate of Full Stack Academy, which is a full stack JavaScript boot camp in the city. And I've been a Node developer for about 5 months now. And I'm also currently a teaching fellow at Full Stack for only another 2.5 weeks. So my talk today is on Koa. As Node developers, most of us probably use Express as our web application framework because it's sort of the de facto framework. But that doesn't mean it's the only one. And Koa is pretty cool, as I've been learning. And I'm here to show you just a basic intro to Koa and why I think it's pretty cool. So the defining characteristic of Koa is that it uses ES6 generators in its architecture, which allows us to do some really cool things. And if you don't know much about ES6 generators, it's basically a very, very brief summary of generators is that they're functions that allow you to pause the function and then resume it at a later date. Cool, so let's just get into some code. So a lot of this talk is actually just comparing Koa to Express. So here we have some middleware in Express. It's doing some, not too much. It's console logging, and then we're calling next. And then in our second piece of middleware, we're just going to send a status back and a message back to the client. And in Koa, we can do pretty much the same thing. But the big difference is that instead of passing in a regular function here, we're going to pass in an ES6 generator, which is denoted by this asterisk. And then this generator takes the next parameter, and we're just going to console log Koa do something, right? And then we're going to yield next. So what that essentially does is it pauses this function and moves on to the next piece in our middleware. So we're just going to define another, oh crap. And in here we can set, just like before, we can set this.status equal to 200. We can send this.body. And in this, in Koa, this refers to the Koa context, which is just a wrapper for the Node.js request and response. And it gives us a lot of cool methods. So when we set this.body to something happened, we're actually setting the response body that gets sent back to the client. So that's just some basic middleware in Koa. So now let's talk about the request flow. So in Express, very typical sort of downstream request flow. We're going to go from top to bottom in our pipeline, basically. So here we're just concatenating the string A, B, C, and they're all calling next, and then that ends up on line on 26. We're going to send the status and this string that we've concatenated ABC. In Koa, we can do a very similar thing like this, where we, again, this.body is the request, or the response body that gets sent back. We're concatenating the string, right? But with Koa, we can actually have upstream request flow. So at the end of this, on line 51, there is no next in our middleware. So this yield next is actually yielding to an internal Koa generator. And then when that's finished, we move back and resume this function on line 46. So we can set something in here, this.body plus equals D, right? And then when this finishes, we're going to bubble up back to this first piece in our middleware. So this is gonna concatenate the string A, and then we're gonna yield next. Then we're gonna concat B, yield next C, yield to the internal Koa generator, and then we're going to bubble up back and add D and then E onto our response body, which is pretty trippy if you are coming from Express, because this downstream upstream flow can be pretty strange. Okay, cool. But the coolest part about Koa is how we can deal with asynchronous code. So in Express, we can do callbacks, right? We're pretty used to callbacks, this callback structure. We can also use promises to deal with asynchronous code. And in Koa, we can actually use that yield keyword to deal with some of our asynchronous code. So here, I've better explained like lines 38 and 44. So Koa is a pretty bare bones framework, so it doesn't actually come with a router, unlike Express. So we have to require in a third-party router, and then line 44 is router.routes returns a generator that our Koa app can use. So that's what that is. So now we can do router.get. This is very similar to Express. Pass in a generator. Oh, I better put next in here. Right, and then, so let's say we want to make a database query for some users. We can create this variable called users and then yield our user.find. And what that does is it pauses this generator function, and then it runs our user.find method. And then whatever that resolves to, whatever that returns, gets set to our users variable. You can't actually do this in like a normal generator, because I believe user.find, if you're using Mongoose or something, would return a promise, but Koa allows you, it does some stuff internally that will return the actual data that you want. And then we can set this.body equal to our users, and then yield next. It's recommended that you yield next after each piece of your middleware. So this is like, it looks very synchronous, even though this is asynchronous code. And it just looks really nice compared to some other ways we're used to dealing with asynchronicity. So I think that that's like a pretty cool aspect of Koa, that we just pause this function, do our user.find, do our asynchronous database query, and then resume this function whenever that has completed. Cool. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was error handling. So in Express, we handle errors, we call next with the error, however it is, with callbacks or with promises. But in Koa, and Express, like, we define error handling middleware by doing app.use and then passing in a function that has 4 parameters, one of which is error, and then we can send back to the client whatever we want. In Koa, we handle errors by wrapping our asynchronous code in a try-catch block. So here, if there's an error in any of this code, most likely in this product.create, we'll move into this catch block where we can then, again, this is the Koa context, and it has a method called throw, where we can throw our error and some sort of error code if we would like. And then, because of the bubbling, the upstream request flow, we can define our middleware at the top of our Koa pipeline. So here we have our error handling middleware. And the signature for this error handling middleware that defines it so that Koa knows that it is the error handling middleware is we try to yield next, right? And then we can catch the error, and then we can this.status equals error.status, or 500. This.body equals error.message, right? And then the last part, and an important part, is that because we're handling this error manually, we have to admit to the Koa app that there was an error with the error and with the Koa context. And that just lets the default behavior of Koa execute. And that's basically what I wanted to show you guys. Any questions on any of that? Yeah.
Going back upstream, is there any multi-functionality yet in terms of directing it to a specific subset?
No, it's similar to, I believe it's similar to how in Express, it's just going to sort of go down that pipeline. And in Koa, it's just going to go down and then back up, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, I was going to include this, but I didn't know if I had time. So if you yield next and this dot body, let's see, F, right? What's going to happen is that there is no more middleware for it because this middleware starting on line 53 ran to completion. There's nowhere else for it to go. So this yield next sort of doesn't go anywhere. It probably goes to the Koa, that internal Koa generator that I was talking about. But then, but what you're going to see is that lines 48 and then 50, D and F, they're going to happen. F is going to happen right after D. It doesn't go anywhere between that. Yeah.
In your last example, the error handling.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 71. Your first middleware would still catch that error, correct?
If there was no...
So yeah, if you didn't do the try catch there.
Right, if I just threw an error somewhere in here, if I just did this dot throw, is that what you're saying?
No, if you just didn't have that.
Oh, right, like if this threw an error, the product.create, if that threw an error, it would still... I believe it would. I'm actually not 100% sure, but I believe that it would still get caught. Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you.